YHDP stands for the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program. It's funding from HUD that went in 2 different rounds, 2 different years, into 21 communities. A total of, 43 plus 33, $76 million in 21 communities. There are 14 states represented. We've tried to create momentum in communities in ways that we might not have seen previously on youth homelessness, and that is bringing everyone together to create that momentum. And we've seen just kind of the transformational power of having a diverse group of stakeholders coming together to do that in communities. And what that does when all of these communities together can say that we're creating these systems to prevent and end youth homelessness, we're building a kind of a cadre of communities across the country that are standing up and saying, yes, we really believe we can do this, and here's how, and here are all the folks we have at the table. In those ways, I think we are contributing and helping to build the national momentum. That work is happening in lots of different places, but the work in these YHDP communities is definitely doing that too. We're also trying to figure out whether bringing all of these stakeholders together in a systemic way actually is the right approach and the one that works for young people and actually gets the best bang for the buck for young people who are experiencing homelessness in their communities. And so we're trying to actively learn how to do that better, how to facilitate that better. That's part of what the YHDP communities are doing. And we're also trying to figure out whether we are building the kind of projects and the kind of tools and using the kind of interventions that actually are responsive to what young people are telling us that they want and need in order to get out of housing instability. And so figuring out whether we're doing that the right way, we're trying to expand communities' capacity to do that.
Yeah, and I think we're trying to expand communities' capacity beyond the traditional way we think about it in terms of just resources and infrastructure, but really trying to help communities in a way get out of their own way. Yeah. And thinking about who has a seat at the table, thinking about how to think differently about partnering with each other around policies and practices, and how to get creative and innovative about the resources that already exist in their community is all part of that sort of building on community capacity. And then also, I think one of the favorite things I love about YHCP is helping communities shift their language around individual program and agency performance, and really thinking about how this process can get them practicing, really looking at collectively, what's their collective impact on the experiences of young people in their community. Yeah. And then lastly, thinking about how, we're learning how to do this. And so together with the federal partners and the communities, what does make sense, right? How are we getting in their way? What supports do we need as colleagues to make sure that we're being smart, we're being creative, and we're really building the strengths in the community so that when we leave the meeting, leave the community, that really we've supported an infrastructure that's sustainable. What we've learned through this process and continue to learn, when you're setting the table, when you're creating that menu, who's in the kitchen preparing that makes all the difference. And so the work that communities have to do on the front end to think about who gets to be designing that opportunity for a seat at the table and what will be served at that meal is so critical. And in communities where we saw it was just the COC and one youth provider determining what the menu, right, what the plan was going to be, became drastically different at the end of their process when they were able to bring in more stakeholders like education, like child welfare, like juvenile justice, and of course really centered the young people's voices in that process. And so for those that, with YHDP or not, are thinking about really moving towards a community plan, making sure that all the voices that are needed in your community are in that kitchen with you before you even get started is so critical.
Have you ever worked in a kitchen?
No,
in a professional kitchen?
I have not. Have you?
I delivered pizzas for a little while, so it's not really the same thing. I made pizzas in the pizza kitchen. So I don't have kitchen experience, but the one thing that I can say is that, look, on a pizza line, right? Like if you put the sauce at the end of the line, you're gonna have a screwed up pizza at the end of the day, right? Like the sauce has to come at the front of the line, right after the dough, if you're gonna have kind of the pizza the way that the pizza is intended to be built. You know, you want to design your kitchen in ways that actually get you to delivering the product that you want to deliver. And if the product is the thing that ends youth homelessness, you want to be intentional about how you design those things. And you want to be clear about how you make decisions on how to get there, right? So part of what YHCP communities are focused really intently on is creating the kind of structure that would allow for really hard things really hard decisions to get made together. And look, if the sauce isn't the right place, who says that the sauce moves, right? How do you figure out how to actually move that sauce? And you know, giving folks a structure to do that is key.
And I think what we were really aware of is that kitchen, right, has already been set. Right, so like determining that assembly line has already been set, and so our work is coming into the community and really, in a affirming and supportive and data-driven way, suggest how we restructure that kitchen and put in the tools to make it happen.
And most times we're like keeping young people out the back door of the kitchen, right? So are we intentional about making sure that they're in the design as well?
Yeah. And it's hard work for communities. I'm sure others in this room could share their experiences on this point.
So a smorgasbord of food here on the table. Hopefully you aren't terribly hungry. We're not leading you right into lunch, but we're going to make you actually look at a lot of food over the course of this presentation. And one of the things that I think strikes me about this, like, right, we all love a good potluck. But you don't actually know when you show up what you're going to get except for what you bring, right? Yeah. And you don't actually know whether, you know, there's going to be, like, let's look at the meal set out on this table, right? Is there anything there that I can eat? I mean, are you asking yourself that question? Probably, especially if you have some dietary restrictions or, you know, you just don't like to chew hard things or I don't know, whatever it may be, right? Like, are there things here for me? And everybody's kind of scoping that out and saying, that thing, I don't know. And then there's that other thing in the corner, you're like, is that thing moving? Right? Like, you just kind of bring all that stuff together and it's uncoordinated. It's not clear what the vision is. It has worked and it will feed you. It will feed most people. It won't feed everyone. But it doesn't, it lacks the kind of, it lacks design, right? But, you know, for a lot of folks, and for a while, like, it'll get the job done, and it has served a function in our history, in our lives. It serves a function. And we think about the work in homeless systems in similar ways, right? Like, how are we helping, how are the systems that we've created de facto and without intent and without purpose, how do they look like a potluck table right now?
And I think what's been interesting in the communities that I work with is that, you know, there's personal commitment and investment in just getting to this potluck, right? Someone put a lot of time into that hot dish or that program model, right? And so to be at the table where we're asking them to imagine something different, that better serves the young people in their community. There's ego built into letting go of that hot dish. There's ego built into saying, yeah, this potluck was great for me, but it's not about me. It's about the young people in my community. And so what do I need to, what self-reflection do I need to do as an individual and as an organization to say I can do better? We can set a better table than this for the young people. And so, yeah, we love this picture. It just so reflects what we see sometimes. But we know, right, so if you do the work of having that comprehensive community plan, you do the work of being really clear about how you built that kitchen and who's part of that conversation to set the table, that when we go back to the kitchen, that this is not the best picture because it's so white, in my opinion, but the idea, like color, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
How white is it?
You know. But the idea is that when you go back into that kitchen, right, with that clear plan, that you've designed the kitchen to really meet the needs of everyone that needs to be at that table, that what you see happening behind the scenes is that everyone has a really clear sense of what their role is. Everyone has a really clear sense of where their strengths are and how they contribute to that menu, how they contribute to that larger goal, and that there's coordination that you didn't see before, and there's innovation there, and there's creativity there because you created the space. You made sure that everyone had the resources that they need and they're maximizing their strengths in the best way. So you know that what you're going to bring to that table is something a little bit more enticing and engaging and responsive, and really meets the needs of the people that are about to sit and have a meal with you.
Yeah, and in most kitchens, right, there's also a lead chef, and the lead chef is responsible for making sure that everyone is working their role, and that the product, everybody's. What's that chef show where the guy yells at everybody or whatever?
What's his name? Gordon.
Yeah,
Ramsay,
exactly. Right.
yeah.
The Ramsay guy.
We don't yell at him.
No, I'm not saying that. But the point is true, right? You want to have a good product that ultimately that you can serve up.
Right.
For young people experiencing homelessness, and there is someone who's kind of guiding and watching that, but everybody else, there's a role for everyone in doing it. So.
Usually more colorful.
All right. And so, take a look at this meal and I think juxtapose it to the meal of the potluck and think about the intention here and how the items themselves that are being served are complementary. How you can see that there is something if you have different kinds of needs. That you can find something in the meal that works for you. You can hopefully find a couple of things that work for you. It's clear that there was very intentional development of this, putting this in front of you. And it has a sort of kind of grace and beauty and appeal to it that makes you kind of want to come in and eat and partake and be a part of that. Mm-hmm. And those things don't happen accidentally. I know that I'm juxtaposing the words intentional and accidental, but having a meal that goes together, that elements fit together, that's well planned and designed, those things, they don't happen by accident, they happen intentionally. And so what we're working with the YHTP communities to do is really think about how they build their meal with intention, how they have complementary dishes, how they figure out how to meet the needs of the folks that are going to come to the table, and that everyone walks away satiated, happy, and in a better place from having participated.
Yeah, and I would just add that process-wise, what we typically consider to be sort of the side in this process becomes your main entrees, right? So looking at prevention, centering LGBTQ equity and racial justice, looking at not just the front end of the system, but the back end. So, not just that young people obtain housing stability, but they're living their fullest potential, and that we've created a system to support that. And most importantly, in the process, is when we think about what used to be a side, and in some communities is still considered a side, is youth collaboration. And that in this process, we have been pushing and driving as much as we can that youth collaboration is your main entree, not your side in this process, and that when you do that what you get, the best part of a meal for me is the dessert, right? All your hard work, that beautiful meal ends with this beautiful dessert. And what we think when we reflected on this picture, this is about what we're trying to create through YHDP. We're trying to create options for young people that is responsive to their needs, that is individualized, and that really is about recognizing that we're meeting young people where they're at, and their destination looks different for every individual one of them. But here, the base, right? The base of each dessert is the same. That we've created that foundational safety net. We've created all the foundational things every young person needs in a community. But man, those toppings, everyone can find what they need when they go to get their dessert.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick one of the ones with the cherries.
The cherries?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm hoping those are edible flowers, and I can do that. But most importantly, right, that we have this beautiful response system that young people want to access, want to engage with, and that it's really meeting their needs.
And that beauty is built around a core set of values that the community has come together and articulated together, and results in, just what you said, right? Like a foundation that is strong, consistent, but has kind of the individualization, and that you can find exactly what you need, that you can pick the one that you need and it's going to work for you. And it's intentional, it's beautiful, and it's built on values.
I love this. This is after your hard work.
Yeah.
But what we like to say to communities, this is just the beginning, right? So you've prepared this beautiful meal. There was enough for everyone that was there, but you want to sustain the good work that you're doing, right? So we all get back in the kitchen and we debrief, right? We talk about what went well. We talked about what was enough. What do we need to right size? Who else needs to be in this kitchen moving forward with us, right? Celebrate the successes and think about how we continue to do the work.
And in the kitchen, a good kitchen will do this every night, right? A good kitchen will say, what did we have enough of? What were we missing? What was too fast? What was too slow? How did we not deliver that meal on time? How did we not put all those things together for the table out there in the restaurant, right? And then they come back the next day and they try to do it better. And that's how you become, a top-rated kitchen, a top-rated restaurant, right? It's because you can deliver those things reliably. You have to invest in this process as well. You have to invest in the desire, the work it takes to keep improving, and to not be satisfied with how you were yesterday or today, but to be better tomorrow.
Absolutely. And all, again, because we want this for communities. We want this for the young people in our community, that we have a sustained foundational safety net, a sustained community practice and set of values that allow young people to engage and access what they need when they need it, and that it's really individualized to meet their needs.
So we're going to leave you with just a couple of things. Number one, you've heard this over the past 2 days over and over again, right? And
we'll keep saying it.
Yeah. And recognize that we are, grannies up here on the stage, but I'm a granny. You see the gray hair here? That the most important part of every effort that we've seen is having young people centered, collaborating effectively, communicating well, and letting young people lead the decision making. Across the communities, this has transformed their ability to really think differently about how to do the work. We're also seeing that they're using their data to drive how they make their front-end decisions, but also how to iterate over time, do the debriefs. They need to have information to do that. You have to build your data, your local data, to be able to do that, and then be responsive to what it tells you. If it tells you something's not working, you better effing fix it, right? Yep. And then kind of go from there. If something's working, build more of it. Figure out how to do it better. Third, it takes the whole kitchen. It takes all of the roles. It takes stakeholders across systems. Make sure that there's intention of having those folks at the table, but also willing to keep plugging in on their role. Look at that from a policy level. Look at that from a practice level. Look at that at a data level. See how you can really transform across systems. And then lastly, I think pay attention. Figure out how to pay attention to who keeps getting left out, and why, and what we're going to do to change that. We've seen that has been over and over again. Just a great conversation with Justin even this morning, right? Over and over again. We know it's LGBTQ youth. We know it is young people who have young kids. We know that it is young people of color. Why aren't we fixing it?
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing better? Why aren't we figuring it out? So investing in those in figuring out how to create systems that are actually responsive to those young people are what these communities are doing.
And we are privileged and blessed to be alongside them while they do it.
Like such a journey, so much learning, and happy and glad and privileged to be able to share it with you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.